Oh man, everybody, here we are at one of my favorite places at the Gettysburg battlefield, and I'll wager most of y'all have not been here before. We are on Neill Avenue, also known as Lost Avenue, okay? This is a parcel owned by the park, but landlocked by private land, and hence, you can't just come here on your own. You have to be able to get permission from the local landowners, and I thank our good friend named Dean who has helped us to gain access to this place. Just look at this. This is what some of the avenues at Gettysburg were supposed to look like originally. You've seen some made on the Telford system, but there are grassy avenues like Custer Avenue, Coster Avenue, and this, Neill Avenue. Now, I have to make sense of all this so you know why you should care about Neill Avenue, why the avenue's lost, and everything like that. But first, let me just say that we are fighting thunder and rain that's probably going to downpour on us, so I might go a little bit quickly, even if I'm not going to talk as fast as usual, because Lost Avenue requires a little bit of a slower pace because of how cool it looks. John Batchelder, the first historian at Gettysburg, called this the most beautiful spot on the battlefield, and if you ever get to come out here, take the opportunity because you might agree. On July 2nd, 1863, the Union Army is already in the shape of a fishhook. We'll flash up some graphics for you here. You know that the Confederates are going to attack on both flanks of the fishhook, and you probably also know that when they attack Culp's Hill, they are also going to seize part of Culp's Hill known as Lower Culp's Hill. Okay, they're feeling good, they send more reinforcements, but the Union ends up with even more reinforcements with them. By July 3rd, the Union High Command is concerned that maybe the Confederates are going to get around even further around the Culp's Hill sector of the fishhook, okay? And for this job to maybe protect land over here, remember, the Union Army's over there on Culp's Hill, way behind me there, but then the Union has a bunch of cavalry soldiers way over there. Okay, and they are interested about the Confederates exploiting this gap over here, okay? Long story short, the Union 6th Corps is now the sort of mobile reserve, and they're getting parceled out all over the battlefield. Literally, 6th Corps soldiers are on the far left of the Union Army along the Taneytown Road, and then they're on the far right of the Union Army, soon to be here on Wolf's Hill or Lost Avenue, okay? Some of these soldiers are from New York, the 49th, the 43rd, and some are from Maine, the 7th Maine, beautiful monument that you never get to see. And these guys did real deal fighting. Again, this is the 6th Corps. The 6th Corps sort of got off easy in 1862 and 1863. They seem to be like at all the big battles, but never playing the biggest part, but they're going to make up for it in 1864. In 1863, the 6th Corps, including Neill's brigade, is going to be heavily involved in the attack in 2nd Fredericksburg and then the Battle of Salem Church. Wish our friend Chris White was with us here. As the Union Army started becoming concerned about this area and how there's a big gap between the Union infantry and the cavalry way over there, you have Thomas Neill's brigade. They're positioned on a place called Powers Hill. I kind of call that Gettysburg's 4th hill, although you can come up with a 5th and the 6th as well. Powers Hill kind of sits behind, in Union Army terms, behind Culp's Hill, and they're positioned around there with some cannons and whatnot. Ultimately, Slocum, the commander of the 12th Corps, or a whole wing of the Union Army, is going to order some of Thomas Neill's, then more of Thomas Neill, and then all of Thomas Neill's brigade across Rock Creek over here and up to this beautiful location here. Why are they doing that? There are some Virginians, some Confederates on this side of Rock Creek actually doing some shooting. They're probably in support with some other North Carolina troops as well. So the Union has reason to be worried. And this kind of details the story of the Battle of Gettysburg. You got a regiment or two of Confederates over here. What does the Union do? They send 4 regiments over here. Those 2 New York regiments, then the 7th Maine, and then we're going to come across a Pennsylvania unit as well on the end, and it's going to be that Pennsylvania unit. And when we get there, there's a good payoff. I have something cool to show you that you might not even know exists. But it's going to be that unit that sort of stretches out and connects with the cavalrymen over on what we call East Cavalry Field. Okay, now Thomas Neill, he's a West Pointer, 1847. He's near the bottom half of his class, but let's not hold that against him. This guy was in a whole lot of fights, and they're part of a division that got in a whole lot of fights, especially in 1864, where it seems like the 6th Corps is just everywhere, okay? Now, Andy Poulton behind the camera there already sort of panned back and showed us the beauty of this site with the stone walls, one original to the battle. Most of the battlefield stone walls were built, you know, by the farmers who had to clear their stone wall properties of stones anyway, so they made stone walls around them. And then later, this was enclosed by first the Gettysburg battlefield Memorial Association and then by the Gettysburg National Military Park to make this beautiful avenue here. There were plans to have this avenue connect all the way out to East Cavalry Field. This is, of course, before the big highway known as Route 15, was there or anything like that. And eventually, the park can only do so much. These plans were going to be for all these looping avenues and whatnot. And for one, I'm kind of glad this avenue is lost. It's lost because it is landlocked by private land, okay? You can go on a map and see where it is. The U.S. government owns it. We own this, but there's no legal way to get to it. But there are tours once in a while out here with permission that I'd encourage you to check out. Now, real quick, here it is, the 3rd Brigade. This is their brigade plaque, and you see that they have 5 regiments, but 4 are up here. The 77th New York stays back on Powers Hill, of course, right? Now, if you were to look at the casualties on this, and it says here, 1 officer and 1 man killed, 11 wounded, and a couple captured and missing, 15 for a whole brigade. Now, in some actions, that's a good amount. And of course, these are your friends, so it's quite serious if you lose any at all. But that's real low for the Battle of Gettysburg. In fact, this division, brigades make up divisions, the 2 brigades within suffered some of the lowest casualties of any of the units at Gettysburg. Yet, across the war, they're going to suffer some of the highest casualties. So I would encourage everybody, even as we are here at the Gettysburg anniversary, don't just study the Civil War through the lens of Gettysburg. If they didn't fight hard here, you don't know anything about them unless you study the rest of the war and you see that Neill's brigade, Grant's Vermont Brigade, saw some of the hardest fighting of the whole Civil War and sometimes some of the most consequential actions. The 6th Corps, really, you look at them at 3rd Winchester, Cedar Creek, the breakthrough at Petersburg, at the Wilderness, and you start to see these guys doing a whole lot of stuff. Now, when this fight was first starting up here, this is a light fight. This isn't a straight up charge. This is sort of where the infantry line would have ended with the New York soldiers, okay? But then eventually, wanting more reinforcements, here comes the 61st Pennsylvania that we're making our way up to. But Andy, let's take one quick look. This is the field across which Confederates, again, were on the other side, not the Culp's Hill side, the opposite side of Rock Creek. So there are some isolated Confederate regiments out here, and these guys aren't here to attack them and destroy them. They're here to protect the Union right flank and connect with the cavalry, which is where we're headed right now. Now, you're with the American Battlefield Trust. We're here by special permission, which is the only way to get out here to this Neill or Lost Avenue. And we are making our way up here, and it hasn't started pouring on us yet, which is a good thing, okay? Let's give a moment of zen so you can enjoy the beauty of this place. Now, as we start to make our way up, you see these guys are sort of attenuated, right? They are trying to occupy some high ground here, get a good connection with some of the extended pickets of the cavalry troops that are up there and whatnot. And what you see here is some high attrition among officers before this battle in the 61st Pennsylvania here. They took their work seriously, and I believe it's at the Battle of 2nd Fredericksburg or Salem Church, where the colonel gathered all his men together, all of his sergeants, and said, this is the plan. This is what we're supposed to do, because he was concerned that all the officers above the rank of sergeant would be killed, and they end up suffering at that battle. Just such a high casualty rate that their officer corps is basically wiped out. And again, 2nd Fredericksburg was one battle for them. We study the Civil War through whatever prism we like, because we like Wilson's Creek or Gettysburg or something like that. But for some soldiers, they were only in one fight, and that was their Civil War. Now, I'm going to ask Andy not to focus on the sign that is past this monument. First, we're going to go to this monument, and we'll end with the big reveal over here. But we're so glad you're with us today. This is really special. This is only about the 6th or 7th time I've ever been out here in more than 30 years, so this is a special treat. And I think you're seeing an open woodlot of a similar type. Whether there was woods here or not, during the Civil War in the summer, you could see through woods because they were grazed by livestock, and when something fell down, when a farmer saw a tree fell down, they cut it up and they used it, okay? So let's swing around here. This is going to take some tough camera work without giving off the reveal. I think he's gonna, okay, there we go, check it out. That's some simple maneuvering there. You could see the 61st Pennsylvania. Again, these guys are, in the line of fire. There's only a couple killed, but you've got 11 wounded, one of whom is buried. One of the killed is buried in the National Cemetery He is a Canadian fighting under Maine's flag, and I believe his name is Skelly. Thank you, Dean. In there. So here's their monument. What I really wanted to show off here is that the government had plans for this. If you go along South Confederate Avenue, right past the stone lunettes of Riley's Battery, I believe, you'll come across a sign that says Right of the Army of Northern Virginia. That's pretty cool stuff. Flanks are tough. They're always moving around. Even here on Culp's Hill, or near Culp's Hill, before the flank was here on Wolf Hill, it was down near Spangler Spring by the 13th New Jersey. Then it was over closer to Spangler Spring proper. Then it was up on Culp's Hill. And then it was up in other areas. Then it was on the First Days Field. There are dozens of different flanks during the battle, but the government wanted to mark both flanks for both armies if possible. And here's something you never get to see. Right next to the extreme right flank marker of the 61st Pennsylvania, here you have right of the infantry of the Army of the Potomac. They're very careful because there is cavalry connecting loosely with them with pickets over here. So this is the right of the infantry of the Army of the Potomac. The government talked about putting a Union left flank marker of their infantry force over near the Taneytown Road. I can't tell that that ever happened. And we also don't have a left flank of the whole Confederate Army of Northern Virginia, but I'll take it. At least we have one for each army, which is pretty cool. Now, when we come out here, and you think about these roads in the battlefield, this is sort of a hidden gem must do for people that are really into Gettysburg. If you never get to come, I'm glad you get to see this video. Oh man, I hear that thunder coming up. But we really hope that at some point you get to come out here during a special event, okay? With that, we're gonna thank you. Thanks so much to Dean for having us. Thanks to Andy Poulton behind the camera. Thank you for watching and for supporting battlefield education and preservation.
Hello, this is Trace Atkins. Get inspired at battlefields.org.